and I think we're good to go. And so, welcome to my podcast, I guess. And thanks for being here, taking the time. And reason this might be I don't want to say it might be a different conversation, just because I always felt like I'm an enemy of nutrition, if that makes sense. Because I really respect like certified nutrition, dietitians and all that, just because the research and the trends are always changing, and people in this field, I've I admire. I'm just like, I'm glad you're keeping up with it. So I guess maybe first we should start this off by maybe kind of giving you a little brief introduction about yourself, so everyone kind of knows a little small thing from you, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, sounds good. So I actually didn't start out as a nutrition coach. I started out as a teacher. And I was just telling you off air, I lived in New York City for 12 years. And during that entire time, I taught. But I went through kind of a variety of health struggles and weight gain in my 20s. I gained about 20 pounds in my 20s after college and did what everybody does, which I found, in conversations with people that I tried the diet. I tried counting calories. I tried exercising a ton, juice cleanses, supplements. I tried everything that everyone else was doing. And I would always lose the weight for a little bit, not all of it, but I'd lose 5-10 pounds. And then when I stopped being very strict with the diet or program I was doing, I would gain it all back. And then I'd try something new, and then I'd gain it all back. And so that went on for the majority of my 20s. And I kind of chalked it up to, oh, maybe it's because I'm a teacher now. And I mean, I chalked it up to aging at one point. I mean, I was still in my 20s, but like, I don't know, maybe I'm not a teenager anymore. My metabolism is slowing down. And then I really decided, other people are able to crack this code. And there are some people out there who aren't in this yo-yo diet pattern, and they've figured it out. And I've always been a lover of research and education, which is part of what made me become a teacher in the first place. So I decided to just get my hands on as much nutritional information as possible. I did a deep dive into podcasts, books, scholarly articles. I eventually enrolled in a course to become a certified nutrition coach. At the time, just thinking it was more for my own knowledge and my own health. Didn't really plan to use that again, because I sort of had in my mind, I became a teacher and this is what I do forever. But I fell in love with nutrition research and decided, when my husband and I moved back across the country to be closer to family, to pursue this as a career and coach people and help them get the same lasting results that I was ultimately able to get, just by making behavior modifications, working on my mindset around food, and really living life to the fullest. I don't cut anything out completely. I'm not on any crazy regimen. And it almost felt like this best kept secret. Clients will even tell me now, I had no idea how easy this could be. Just because we are so disillusioned, I think, by all of the diets and programs and things that everybody else is doing. And we think that's the only way. And I certainly was there myself. But yeah, started my own business as a nutrition coach, left teaching kids behind, but I still teach, I would say, my clients. So that's still a part of me. And I have a group coaching program. I love creating curriculum, and it's been really fruitful and awesome. And I've never looked back. And I feel like I finally figured out my own passion and what I really wanted to do through my own struggles.
I love that. I tried being a teacher myself, or I was trying to be a teacher myself, by the way, and I was always second best in my interviews, so I ended up going down a different career path. But yeah, I can relate.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What did you want to teach?
I was trying to do PE was the initial goal, but yeah, like I said, I was always second best in my job interviews, and after a while, I was well, just find something else. But
yeah, that's good. Find something where you can be first best, right?
Exactly, right. I want to win. So when you're working with your clients, I mean, do you have a particular client base that you usually go with, or is it mainly just people just of all different types just saying, hey, I want to lose X amount of pounds and I want to work with you? Is that kind of how it goes for you, or what?
I would say, if I had to name a client, I would say it's a yo-yo dieter.
Oh,
So I work with men and women. Mostly women come to me, I think, because I'm female. But I do work with some men as well. And most of them who come to me do have a goal of weight loss. Usually they have a goal of having more energy, feeling more confident, establishing healthy eating patterns long term. But primarily the goal is weight loss. And we tackle that depending on what they've tried in the past, what their personality is like, what their time constraints are like, their lifestyle. Everyone has a bit of an individualized plan, which I think is really important to mention, that there's not really a one size fits all approach that works for everyone. So right now I have a mom of 3 young kids, 3 kids under 5, I think. So her plan is going to look a little different from the other woman I'm working with who's single and in her 20s. So I hate when traders will say that thing of everybody, nutrition coaches too, will say everybody has the same 24 hours a day. Mm-hmm. And I mean, kind of, I mean, in the literal sense, I guess, but when you look at all of the lifestyle factors that interfere, that's really not the case, right? So we've got to look at the plan you're doing and make it work for you so that you can be successful and you can have sustainable results.
Yeah, I started really getting more into nutrition back in probably 2016, 2017 and learning just because I was taking, I compete in CrossFit on the side. So I look at food as fuel. And it was just like what you said that, I've had people ask me, well, what are you eating? What are you doing? And it's just, well, this is what I do. But just because, this is my lifestyle, this is what I'm doing, it may not always work for you too. And what I guess my point is what I'm getting at is that people need to find out when they start, working with you or in a diet, that they have to find out what works for them. And just because everyone's different, got a different biochemistry, right? And that, just because one thing works for one person, they're not going to get the same results. And that,
yeah.
And also that most people want that shortcut, 1 week, 2 weeks that, oh, I don't see any results, I'm just going to quit. They're not looking at the long-term, I guess, the results of it all, Does that kind of make sense? And that's what seems like these people, different weird mindsets about,
Yeah. And I mean, you can get results on something like Optavia, I think it's called, or maybe it's Optavia, I don't know. But it's a series of meal replacement bars and shakes. I have a couple of clients who have done that, and they both lost a bunch of weight, but then the weight came back. So it depends on how you define success. If you think success is losing all the weight and then showing up for whatever event you were trying to lose weight for and looking good at that event, but then gaining all the weight back after, then go for it. I mean, if you want to do that, that's totally fine. But if you're looking for a sustainable lifestyle and you want to lose the weight and keep it off forever, probably those quick fix solutions are not going to work because there's no exit plan. That's the problem. It's once you stop buying the shakes and protein bars, then what? When you go back to eating with your family again and going to restaurants, what's the plan at that point?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a problem with the word, diet, that it seems as temporary in that thing, and that, I guess that's a mix up in, people I've worked with, and I don't work with them like you do. I've just kind of offer advice or whatever. But yeah, it's exactly what you said. After 4 weeks, they're like, all right, I lost 5 pounds, I'm good. But it's a lifestyle change, and just because you're dieting, you don't, and like I think you have like what I looked up on you, you don't eliminate entire food groups, right? Yeah, and that's what people think like, oh, and this is what's tough. That's why I said earlier, it's what's tough talking about it, because people have this, or certain experts, so to claim, have this dogma approach that, oh, you have to be low carb, you have to be, I don't know, high protein, no fat, or whatever. You have to be keto, you have to be whole food, you have to be carnivore. And it's almost, and it's, there's a book called Diet Cults, and it's basically just talking about how these conversations are almost a nightmare to have, just because, everybody wants to be right all the time with what they do. But there's, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, is that kind of your experience, I guess, is what I'm going on?
Yeah. And I think you explained it really well. That's what I started to realize in my own journey is there are all these different kind of religions and cults, and people are successful in them. But then my question was, what are the underlying processes and what do all of them have in common? Because they've all got to have some things in common. And there are some people who don't belong to any of these diet cults and they're succeeding. And when you break it down and you look at all of these, I mean, the majority of them would agree, eat mostly whole foods, not ultra processed foods. The majority of them except for maybe carnivore would say, eat a ton of plants and, load up on them. The majority would say eat high quality protein, whether that's protein from animals or from plant sources. That could be a choice you make. I think the majority of experts in the world would say get high quality sleep, manage your stress, move your body. I mean, when we get down to the crux of what actually works, it's very simple and it's kind of boring, and it's not something shiny or sexy that you put on a headline or that you put on a bottle and you sell. But still, habit change, even though it's simple, it can be tough. I'm not saying it's easy to change habits, but it can be easier when you find someone who can guide you to really what's backed in science, what's not somebody's dogma or opinion. And then you really have the answer forever. I mean, I don't see myself ever turning to one of those diets or a named program ever again, because I just know here's what actually works, and I've made it part of my lifestyle. And it's really freeing. It's the most freeing thing in the world when that can happen.
Sure.
When you can not only lose the weight, but then maintain your weight forever and not have to start over every Monday or every New Year's Day, the new resolution, as most people end up doing.
Yeah, you just said a few key factors that really underestimated. Yeah, I feel like sometimes I say words on here and I'm like, I hope I said that word right. But
yeah, I do that all the time.
Okay, good. It's not me. But no, it's sleep, and you talked about stress, and those are two biggest factors. When those cortisol levels start coming out, it's really hard to get rid of fat. And I would say, in my own opinion, that I don't really have a stressful life. It's but other people do, and I see it, and just that, with social media there, and people trying to get ahead in their careers or whatever, and what they go through, and it's just like, the stress levels are just, and the anxiety is just ridiculous, and it's just, you're not doing yourself any favors, and then they can't sleep at night or whatever, and it's like, I've asked people like, how much you getting sleep, or how often or how many hours are you sleeping, and they're like, oh, I got 4 or 5. I was like, and and then. And, and I try to get, I'm not saying I'm the winner at sleep, but I usually try to get between 6 and 8. That's usually my goal. And and almost this entrepreneur mentality has not helped anything. And that, they say, oh, you got to have 3 to 4 hours of sleep to get up and you do your work. And that's what you need. And it's like, that's not really how it works, bro. I mean, you're preaching it right now. And it's just like, you need a little sleep. You need to try to keep, and I guess that's easier said than done compared to lifestyles as far as stress. But I think I guess what I'm getting at is that, you kind of analyze those things and maybe write down like, hey, I'm not probably getting as much sleep as I actually said I was, or probably a little bit more stress than I am. That it's starting to play more factor, not only what you're eating, but into everything else.
Yeah, and you could even just start. I always say start small. So if you are listening to this and you are a person who gets 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night, that could be the first and only thing you address, just for even a couple weeks. So go to bed a little bit earlier. That's usually the number one thing. People will say, what are your sleep tips? How do you sleep? Everybody wants the magic pill for everything.
Yep.
And the majority of people just need to put themselves into bed sooner. Things can obviously work, like restricting blue light, maybe reading an actual book before bed instead of scrolling through your phone, or, there are different strategies, but the majority of people just need to get into bed earlier. So you give your body the chance to actually sleep more than 4 or 5 hours. If you're only in your bed for 4 or 5 hours, it's going to be really hard to sleep for 7 hours.
When I was doing a little research for, so I could be a little bit prepared when I was talking to you, I found out that, and tell me if you've heard this, that the average American female, I think, weighs 170 pounds, like 20 years old and up, and then the average male was 190 pounds right now with a 40-inch waist. And that, it's like, and then if you compare that, they compared it to somebody in the Civil War. So what is that, 1886, 1868? I don't know, for those history buffs out there. But, the average male then was 140 pounds. So is there just, I guess what I'm getting at, is there an issue with the modern American diet right now, just where we push so many of the junk food, cheap prices to get that, and that's what y'all you need to eat, and that's it. That's just, those numbers just blew my mind when I read that,
Yeah, I think it's a whole host of things. I always talk about kind of the core 5 components that you should aim for when you're working to lose weight and get healthier. So it's really nutrition, stress management, sleep, movement, and then working on your mindset. But those first four, so nutrition, yes, we have wider availability of ultra processed foods. They're easy to grab. We have takeout at our disposal all the time, fast food. And a lot of these things can fit, right? I don't restrict any of these things. I love a Cheeto now and then. But they're calorie dense compared to a whole food, like a potato, right? Or any whole food, a piece of steak. So the ultra processed foods are going to be more calorie dense and less filling than a whole food because they don't have the water, the fiber, the protein, and all of the stuff that helps keep you full. Talking about stress, I mean, I think we're living very stressed lives. We have more anxiety now, maybe because of social media. So that could be a factor. We're probably sleeping less now. I don't know how much people were sleeping back then, but the interference of blue light. Talking about movement, we're very sedentary now. So I think all of the things, it's not just nutrition. Nutrition is definitely a big piece, but I think we don't move as much.
I agree.
We have a lot of stress and anxiety, and we don't sleep, or even if we do try to sleep, maybe the quality of sleep is poor with all of the technology that we have around now. Or, I don't want to just keep hating on social media, but if you're scrolling through social media right before bed, that could make you kind of anxious and not be able to sleep.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. I mean, I'm an addict, I guess, as long as everyone else with social media, but you do notice that, staring at screens longer, that I've noticed it myself. That's like, I didn't go to sleep right away. And I'm usually a pretty heavy sleeper, and I've noticed when I do it. But I guess, but it's just weird that, people don't break these habits, I guess. And like you said, start small. And that's one thing that I've always tried to learn, because some people are like, oh, I want to lose 10 pounds by this weekend or whatever. And it's like, well, no, you ain't that. No, that's not right. If you can't do that, great, but that's not the way to do it. But and somebody will say, well, how can I even start? And so, well, like, start small, and it's like, no, I want to, I would never tell somebody, it was like, when was the last time you worked out? And they say 5 years. Well, don't do that. Don't go try to walk 5 miles or run 5 miles. So, like, walk a lap around your neighborhood, see where that goes.
Yeah.
And it's forming small habits and getting yourself a positive reinforcement in your mind that you just build off of. And people just don't, it's like we've been saying, they don't recognize that. And just immediately, if they don't see a result, they just kick it off, and they don't want to put in a little extra work, and there's always 100 million excuses to say no, or feel like, I ain't gonna go work out today, or I ain't gonna go walk today. It's just small things like that that immediately change a person's lifestyle.
Yeah, for myself, an example, I've never been a real heavy sleeper. That's something I've always struggled with, and I think it is so much a self-awareness process of getting to know you and how you are unique and what your body needs. And so recently I decided, let me try to give up caffeine, because maybe caffeine is affecting me. Even if I drank it before 11 in the day, I wasn't a heavy coffee drinker, but I thought, let me just try it. So that was one thing I decided to implement. I drink decaf now, so I still get the ritual in the morning of having the coffee, but I go days without any because it doesn't affect me anymore, the caffeine. I don't wake up needing it. And so that helps my sleep a ton. And then another thing I decided to try is I've been getting more books, hardcover books or paperback books from the library, and trying to read more. That's one of my goals this year for myself. And so I thought, why don't I try to do that before bed and put my phone away and see if that could help my sleep as well. And so it's not necessarily fun. I mean, I like looking at my phone. I would probably rather look at TikTok before I go to bed. So not everything you do is going to be the most fun thing, but then the reward you get in the end makes up for it. So I'm sleeping so much better. And also if you're reading a good book, or, I still have the ritual of coffee in the morning. It's not like my life is incredibly worse, but it's these tiny little changes that can add up. Mm-hmm. And it's a constant reevaluation. I think another problem people get into is they think what works now will work forever. And you're always aging. There's always new lifestyle factors. Maybe you have kids, maybe you don't. I mean, there's all these different things affecting your life at different points. So it's constantly reassessing what is going to work for me now and what's going to serve me now. It might not be the same thing that worked 5 or 10 years ago.
Sure. I'm glad you said that because this past October, my friends and I did a sober October kind of thing, and it was no caffeine, no alcohol. And I didn't realize how much caffeine I was actually taking in on a daily basis. Just, 2, 3 cups, say, of coffee, then, a Fit Aid, if you know what those are, it's like a sports drink
Hmm.
or whatever. And then, whatever else, I would probably have even more coffee throughout the day. And I just wasn't realizing it. And and I would still sleep. I'm usually in the bed by 11, getting up around 7 o'clock in the morning. But once I cut it out completely, and after a couple of weeks, I noticed I even started dreaming again, and I was actually getting that deeper sleep and stuff. And it was like, wow, what have I been doing? I still thought I was sleeping, but how much was I actually recovering? But yeah, it's one of those things that, like you just said, that yeah, was not even realizing it until I actually just started writing down like how many milligrams of caffeine are in a cup of coffee roughly, and then what else I was taking in. So yeah, it's wild, and it seems like, and I did miss it. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's like what you said, that early morning thing. It's kind of what it's a part of the lifestyle. It's like a habit, but had to break those,
Yeah.
you know. But once I did, I mean, I'm back on it now. But I don't drink as much at all. It's like 1 cup, I'm good to go. That's all.
Yeah, for sure. I know. I don't know why I just had completely spaced out decaf coffee. I don't know why I thought I had to have caffeine in my coffee.
Yeah.
And it tastes a little different. My husband makes the coffee for us every day, but yeah, it is. I always tell people when you can, if you can replace something with something else, so it's not this void in your life. So if you do decide to cut back on caffeine, for example, switching to decaf or tea or matcha is usually lower in caffeine. Or if you have a habit of eating after dinner while you're watching Netflix, just taking that away completely can feel a lot harder and a lot worse. So is there something, instead of eating straight from a bag of potato chips, is there something you could replace that with that's still crunchy and you get that sensation? So you still are eating something, but it's not maybe a full bag of potato chips or an entire pint of ice cream. Any tiny modification you can make will add up over time. But it's always good to find a swap whenever possible.
You know, I'm glad you said that. It's wild how the food industry can almost manipulate our brains to always want something sweet, and then all of a sudden they want something crunchy.
Yeah.
I forgot what I was watching. It was like a YouTube, like it's one of those competitive food people that stuff down ice cream or hot dogs or whatever it was. But yeah, it was ice cream, and so he was eating. It's like a 5 gallon. Does that sound right? Or 5 pound ice cream sundae or 8 pound. I don't know what it was. It was something huge and that no person should ever eat in one sitting. But anyway, he got to a point where he was completely full, and then he asked for like these really extra salty, crunchy fries from the place. Threw those down, and like his body just opened back up, and he kept continuing it down. And just,
Yeah.
yeah, and it was just like the minds or like whatever's going on in the mind to say, hey, I want something sweet now, I want something salty, and then be able to just keep pounding more. It's ridiculous how like the food. My point is that the food industry can manipulate people just for that reason right there. And obviously, I know what they're doing. They got to sell their product, but damn,
Well,
right?
that is a good point, though. In those food eating competitions, that's a great point and good for everybody to realize, myself included, of, you, even when they think they're absolutely stuffed and they can't eat anymore, they
Mhm.
eat fries and then all of a sudden they can eat more ice cream. It is crazy how much you can fit in your body if you switch from something salty to something sweet back to salty. I mean, you can fit a lot in your stomach, and you just something to be aware of,
Yeah, that's
if
one thing.
that's going on.
That's one thing I have to watch out, that I can still eat. I'm going to be 36 next month, and I can still eat like I did as a teenager. Like I could easily crush, a whole pizza, but if I'm just sitting there hanging out, and even a whole bag of chips, that's my weakness too. And that's one thing. It's like you got to be self aware and kind of know. It's like I can't do this every day. I don't do it every day, obviously, but it's just like you can't form that habit because it's easy for me to, like, if there's a bag of chips open, I'll instantly walk by, grab a handful, then I walk back by, grab another handful. It doesn't matter where.
Yeah.
Like if I see them open, it's just like a weakness of mine, and I can't help it.
Yeah.
But also, like, yeah, with eating a whole pizza, it's like I know I can't do this. So it's one of those things that if I start to do it, I got to put up like a red stop sign on my brain, just like, stop, dude, you're good. Move on. Go, go relax. You don't need all that. Your body doesn't need all that. So
Yeah. One practical tip I have for listeners and what I work on with clients, if that is your propensity to eat straight out of the bag and you can just keep going and going, I say, still enjoy the chips. Don't make them an off limits food, but just say anytime you're going to have them, you have to be sitting down and eating them out of a small bowl. And it's incredible how that works because you're still allowed to have the chips. You can have the chips, but you have to put them in a bowl and then you have to go sit down with them. And it's crazy how much that takes out, any mindless handfuls from the equation, because you can't just eat them standing up in the kitchen anymore. The act of actually putting them in a bowl and sitting down is tougher. You kind of put a barrier between you and the chips, but they can't just be standing up right there.
That's a great tip. I would never even thought about that too, because I usually just grab the whole bag, go sit on the couch and watch them. I don't even bowl, whatever. But I want to switch gears a little bit, and just that, like I was saying earlier, when I got really serious about more of my nutrition, was in 2016, 17, and I started working with Renaissance Periodization. I don't know if you've heard of them. Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
That's Dr. Nadolsky's, is it? Dr.
it's been a
Nadolsky?
few years, but that sounds right.
Okay. Yeah.
But I was going to ask, they created a whole template for me, and it was basically, I was doing the fat loss one. And so, obviously they have weight gain, I think for their ones for bodybuilding and all that stuff. But I mean, they created a whole template, and I actually was able to look at it. It was like, it gave me a list of foods, and it was like, meal one, you could do something like this. Meal two, you could do something like this. And that actually helped me, I guess, visualize more of what I was doing, rather than just kind of this sounds right, this looks right, and like, actually, I think they actually had the like 4 ounces of protein or whatever was in there too. Is that kind of what you do with your clients, or is it basically, or what? I guess, yeah.
Yeah. It depends. So when somebody is trying to lose fat, you have to be in a calorie deficit. So some clients do track calories, but alongside tracking calories, I have them track other things like protein and fiber, so that they're actually feeling full. Because all calories aren't created equal when it comes to feeling full. So that's a problem a lot of people can have when they just open up MyFitnessPal. They also just give you a random calorie number. A lot of people, they have them eating way too few calories, like 1,200 or something. So there's some science behind it of kind of finagling a calorie counting app and making it actually work, and so that you're not just constantly hungry and out of control the entire time you're counting calories. So that's one way to go about it. And then I have clients who don't want to count calories because they have done it in the past and they hate it. And they can still be very successful doing something like you're talking about, where you do a more balanced plate approach. So I have an abbreviation I call PPFV, which stands for protein, produce, fat, and volume. And we talk about balancing your plate with about a quarter of it being protein, half of it being produce. The other quarter of it maybe is a starchier form of produce, or it's a whole grain or beans. And then you're working on getting a lot of volume. I say volume through liquid like water, volume through non-starchy veggies. Those are kind of a freebie, right? Like leafy greens, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. Just, you can eat as many of those as absolutely possible, the non-starchy veggie category. And we practice, what foods do you enjoy? That's also really important. So you're not eating things you hate. How can you balance your plate at each meal? So you end up putting yourself in a calorie deficit by balancing your plate, because you're eating things that help you feel more full. You're less snacky between meals, and you're probably eating smaller portions, again, because you're feeling full from the foods you're eating.
Sure. That makes perfect sense. I mean, and a lot of people don't realize that, certain proteins, like you just said, that, and even certain fats will give you that full feeling, rather than just stuffing down more chips or whatever you're eating, and causing overeating. But I wanted to ask you, get your thoughts on this. I've never played around with it a lot myself. I've tried it maybe for a day, but with fasting. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Fasting can work really well for some people and not for other people. I think a lot of people could aim for a 12-hour fast. That's pretty safe and standard. If you think about, you stop eating at 7 and you eat again at 7 the next morning, that's not too extreme. And a lot of people could probably be well served by that, of kind of cutting off the eating at a certain point at night. And there's a doctor who calls it allowing your body to rest and digest. So if you're eating right up until you go to bed, sure, you're getting that rest and digest period before bed. But again, if you're only sleeping 5 hours and you're eating right up until you're sleeping, and then you eat right when you wake up in the morning, that's maybe only 5 hours a day that your body isn't digesting food. And it probably is digesting at some of those hours if you eat right before bed. So something to keep in mind, like, can you give your body, it's not a typical intermittent fast of 16-8 or alternate day fasting, but even just aiming for 12 hours could be useful. Some people prefer to eat just lunch and dinner, and that works really well for their lifestyle. That can be great. But a lot of people like breakfast a lot. I mean, I have a client right now who eats breakfast, but her breakfast started being so filling that she wasn't that hungry for lunch. So we moved her to kind of having a bigger snack in the afternoon. And then she does dinner. So she's not doing a fast, but she's manipulating her meals to work for her. So she does kind of lunch, bigger snack, dinner. And that's been working great for her. Some people do a full breakfast, lunch, dinner. That can also work. And then, like I said, some people skip breakfast. I have another client who doesn't eat breakfast, and that's fine. But it has to be what works for you. My issue with people in the intermittent fasting community is it worked for them and they feel great and they love it. And then they start telling everybody, you have to do this. And so then somebody will try it and it won't work for them. Yeah. And then they'll feel like they're a failure. And it's just another thing. Add this to the long list of things I failed at, and then it becomes really frustrating. So I hate for people to feel like they've failed at something like fasting. You don't have to do it. You can, what it essentially does is it puts you in a calorie deficit because you're cutting out a meal, let's say, that you used to eat. So people will lose weight and then say, this is what you do. It's a magic pill. But really, there's no magic. It's just you're putting yourself in a calorie deficit. So you can do that in other ways that don't have to be fasting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I mean, setting up people for success is one of the best ways to do it rather than immediately failed and they go back into their old habits and emotional eating or whatever. But I mean, I've only tried that. I only did it for like, I didn't even do it for a day. I did it for a day. And then I was like, I don't know if I like this. I don't know if it worked for me, you know? And I think I went 8 or 12 hours without eating, or I think I only had water or something. And I was like, this is okay. But, but I didn't see any benefit of doing it long-term for me just because, I got a really healthy relationship with food. I eat like a boring person, I eat probably the same thing for breakfast and lunch and for dinner. And that's just, I know what works for me. But have you ever heard that if fasting does recalibrate your taste buds? So like if you are used to eating those sugary or drinking those sugary drinks and eating certain salty foods, it like resets your palate, I guess. And that way, when you go back to drinking a soda, for example, that you're like, I don't really want this anymore. So, you ever heard that? I don't know how true that is. I heard that somewhere. So
I've heard people say that, like if they cut out sugar for a number of days, and then maybe they don't crave it as much, or things taste really sweet that used to not taste that sweet. Yeah, possibly with fasting too. I mean, again, if that's something you want to try, I encourage people just to try stuff, but the issue is if you try something and you think that it has to work, and if it doesn't work for you, you're a failure, that's the wrong mindset. If you want to try something and think, I've never tried this before, maybe this will work for me. And if it doesn't work, just think, okay, that wasn't for me. There's something else out there that will work. That's a better mindset to have about anything that you try. You're not a failure. You just haven't figured out what works for you yet.
Yeah. What is it? Who is it? Edison or whoever invented the light bulb said he just invented or found out 900 ways not to make a light bulb or whatever it was. I don't know.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, and that's with everything that it took me a while to figure out what works for me. And like, I learned from my failures and like, I probably should have did that, but that's the way I feel like most people learn. And that's the way I learn is trial and error. And that's with everything, not just nutrition. That's with everything I do in life. And it's okay to fail sometimes, and that's my whole point that's just, you get yourself up, you just keep going. And if you really want to get to your goal of whatever you're doing, you'll get there. It might take you longer than somebody else, but if you just, the whole point of success, a lot of the success to me is just showing up and doing the work, and you figure out the rest of it along the way. Then you start to get more interested like you did and start researching, and then there you go. Then it just takes off from there. So
really consistent action is if there's any magic pill out there, it's consistent action. It's just doing stuff consistently. And so again, it sounds boring, but I always say there is no exit plan from a lot of these diets. One thing you have to ask yourself is this thing going to teach me how to maintain healthy habits forever? Because weight loss is always talked about. I want to lose weight for X or whatever. And weight maintenance is rarely talked about. So once you lose the weight, you have to keep it off. And that's going to be a forever journey. And people get freaked out when I say that, but it's actually really good news then that the stuff that works to lose weight is kind of the same stuff you'll do forever to keep the weight off. And it's really not that difficult or hard And it doesn't have to be some fringe thing like intermittent fasting that doesn't work for you. It's absolutely possible to figure out what works for you. But the sooner you do that, the better, because you're going to have to do it forever.
Yeah, no, I agree. I want to talk to you about this just because I'm currently reading. It's called Sacred Cow, and it's by Rob Wolf.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so there's almost too much information. There's a lot of research out there, and is that part of you think that your clients, or maybe not even your clients, but just people in general, are just like, all right, hell with it. I'm not even going to try it because I don't even know where to start at, and then
yeah.
Some of them get lucky and find people like you, but not everybody does. And they're just, all right, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. Whatever, who cares? I'll be all right.
100%. I call it analysis paralysis. I mean, that's a common phrase used, but there's so many things and it feels overwhelming and you don't know what works. You don't know what doesn't work. You don't know what is actually worth your time, energy, and money. So, and you probably failed at stuff in the past. So you just think, I don't even want to deal with it. Like you have so many other things on your plate. You have a family, you are working, you don't have time to figure it out. Yeah. And that's the biggest issue, I think, or one of the bigger issues is just feeling completely overwhelmed.
Yeah, I'm still pretty early in that book. But a lot of it is there's so much obviously misinformation, but there's so many studies out there that, throw out there a lot of misinformation and that, basically one of them was that, talking about how bad meat is for you or whatever, and it causes heart disease. But I forgot how the study exactly went, but it was like, well, they didn't really explain exactly what those people they studied were actually eating, also what type of meat, what they were also eating with, their hamburger or whatever, putting down two Cokes and plus multi French fries and stuff like that. And so, I mean, do you see a lot of that though, just where everyone's just trying to obviously be right in the food and nutrition or diet world and just play to me rather than just, hey, this is really what was going on? I mean, in your experience?
I think so. And I think headlines sell.
Ooh, that's good.
It's really, if people want followers, right? And they want more attention and they want people to gravitate to their stuff and their platform. So if you could put out a shiny headline like red meat kills or egg yolks are bad again or whatever, then people are going to flock to that and they're going to want to hear more. So I would say if somebody is saying something, or especially there's a lot of people who will say, like in the keto community, you have to go low carb and nobody else knows about this and all doctors are wrong and everything they've ever learned is wrong and they've been lying to you. And it's almost like we hold the secrets in this community. I think anybody who says we have secrets and nobody else knows them, that's a big red flag. Because if they discovered the cure-all for obesity, doctors all around the world would be jumping on this. If the research truly supported that the only way to lose weight was to go super low carb, I mean, the majority of doctors want to help their patients with whatever goals they have. So they would be talking about that. And yes, that can definitely work for certain populations. But again, it's this idea that in the keto community, they'll say everybody has to do this. And if you're not doing it, then you're damaging your heart and liver and all of your organs. And, it's just, there's a lot of myths and misinformation out there. You can eat a banana, you can eat an apple, you can have oatmeal, and you can still lose weight. And you can still be a healthy person.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is, part of the book was actually talking about how, the World Health Organization put meat up there with, as far as carcinogenics, with plutonium, right? And but it was, I think, but it was also saying that, they identify it as, sorry, I got my dog's ball. He's wanting me to play with him.
Yeah, no.
Okay. And so, but yeah, they identify it as plutonium, but it's ranked up there with alcohol and stuff, but it's like an identifier. It doesn't mean that, eating meat's going to be the same thing as eating plutonium with you. And this is why I always say that I'm an enemy of nutrition. It's just because when I start reading stuff like that, I admire people like you. It's like, how do you keep up with all this stuff? And it just pisses me off. It's just like, and I hate, some, I'm not right in everything I do. And there's that cannot be completely right either. But just the way they made it sound, it's like, well, they're not putting out a whole lot of stuff, especially I think Rob Wolf and what's her name, Diana Rogers. I mean, I think they're registered dietitians. So I think they kind of know what they're talking about. But, for
sure.
Yeah, for the general though, a lot of people don't, I mean, I actually talked to somebody on here and she said that statistic to me. I was like, that's not completely right, but I didn't give her any pushback on it. But it's like, that's not, I mean, I see what you're saying, but that's not exactly the full truth. So.
Yeah, I think I think what I try to do is just scroll past any crazy headlines. I mean, I also am super open to learning. I think what a lot of people do is they kind of pigeonhole themselves into one community, and then they have a lot of money riding on that. So if they've said, I'm vegan, or if they've said, I'm the keto person or the intermittent fasting person, if new research emerges that contradicts what they've said they believe in, that's kind of like a house of cards that can fall very quickly of all of their followers. And, it can make them look like they didn't know what they were talking about or that they were lying to people. So I think it's important to understand that people have built their entire lives around some of these buzz terms, and then they're going to cherry pick research that proves what they're saying because they want to keep their followers. So for the most part, I just unfollow a lot of people.
That's smart.
And I do that kind of like a social media cleanse every so often, and just look through who I'm following and unfollow people who I feel like aren't serving me anymore. And I just follow kind of a really core group of people with very moderate information and science-backed knowledge. And then I don't feel as kind of stressed out in the nutrition space, I guess. I just feel kind of calm. Like we're all just, reading research, really diving into it and suggesting the basics, that we know work, like eat more whole foods. We're not saying anything really crazy. We're just kind of getting people back to how our body, as you said, like food is fuel. Let's get back to the foods that give us the best fuel for our body. And let's not be swayed by any of these kind of fringe things that are trying to scare us.
Yeah. No, I mean, there was actually evidence a few years ago that some sugar company pushed off, like there was some heart disease study. I think I'm going to butcher this a little bit, but yeah, it came out and say, hey, say that they got heart disease because of saturated fats and it wasn't because of sugar or something. It may not have been heart disease. I don't remember exactly off the top.
Yeah.
But it's just things like that. It's just, man, how can people in this, in this industry be so cruel to, I guess, the almighty dollar, which is everything, but just almost, what is the American obese rate here? 40 or 50%? And it's, compared to, these other places in the world who have, blue zones where people were living, plus 100 plus, and it's just, I think there might be one in America if I read that right. I could be wrong on that too.
Yeah, the Loma Linda population.
Right. That sounds right.
They're the Seventh-day Adventists.
Okay.
They're a blue zone. That's in Southern California, right?
I figured it was in California. That's why I'm a fact checker on here. But I know there was one somewhere around here. And the others are like obviously
like Okinawa.
Yeah, they know what they're doing over there as far as
right? They really do.
I mean, I don't know why we can't get it right. We just got to feed our faces all night and binge watch Netflix. I don't know. It seems like it's part of the culture now, and that's what they want to push, our society to, and it's sad, and just that.
Yeah.
And you kind of said it earlier that, we just want to sit. It's almost like cool to sit around and watch Netflix, and it's a cool, fun trend to do, and not actually get up and make yourself happy and have longevity in your life rather than when you get 80 I want to be able to at least still walk around or do a lap in my neighborhood. And it's that's how I picture it. And when I'm not a foodie, and I know most people are foodies, and I like pizza and I like to drink a glass of bourbon on the weekends or whatever, but I know what I'm doing though for the most part. Not 100%, but I know what works for me. But that was one of my goals, was that I want to, when I get 80 I want to still be able to get up and walk around and not feel like have any health issues, and it means something to me, to have that independence.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like nobody cares about that. They're not looking down the road like that. They're just living for now. And I guess we touched on that a little bit earlier, but it just drives me bonkers. When I see that in people, like, you don't care that, you can't, walk from here to the store and you're out of breath.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that don't bother, and I know that's not completely entirely just for food, but it's a little bit just walking too. But it just drives me crazy. That's my whole point.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what we were saying, like that person probably does feel so overwhelmed with, where do I even start? I've gotten to this place, I have all these habits in place. What do I even try next? So I see a lot of people who struggle deeply with nutrition, and they want so bad to feel better and to look better and to have high energy and be able to hike and, do all the things that are great in life. And they've just been really misled
Hmm.
by a lot of information out there. So it's working with people, and I'm trying to reach as many people as possible. It's hard as one person, but I know there are other people out there too doing really good work. But just getting people the right information, I think a lot of it comes down to education of
Sure.
here's what works. Ignore everything else. Just do these tiny little things, make small changes week after week. One change a week would be 52 changes in a year. That's a lot.
That is. Does it
Yeah.
does it bug you that, I guess we'll go back to social media a little bit on this, but like, when Adele lost all her weight or whatever, she was almost kind of criticized for it, and that, a lot of, I guess, these big marketing groups almost, and I'm not saying there's anything, well, there is a little bit wrong with that because, they see these plus size people and they're modeling like this is a good thing. It's like, that's not healthy though. I mean, I understand what you're getting at, but that's still not healthy. And I know, accept everybody, and, you shouldn't judge anybody. And I agree 100%, but it just kind of drives me bonkers that you can advertise that as that's the new healthy, which it's not. Is that
I think, yeah, there's body shaming, which is awful, right? I
sure?
think everybody would agree it's awful to shame somebody, whether they're too thin or they're too heavy, to shame somebody for their body.
100%.
But then in response to that, there is the whole body positivity movement, there's the whole healthy at every size movement. So then there's people reacting to the body shaming that's happened in our culture, saying things like, you can be healthy at any size. I know there are studies that suggest some people who are overweight are healthier than others. Like, it's not to say just because you're overweight, you're going to have the same health markers as someone else who's overweight. People who are very thin can also have poor health markers. Maybe they just don't gain weight, but they eat Doritos all day long. So they could be, skinny fat. I mean, you really can't tell necessarily somebody's health based on their size. Maybe you can kind of, guesstimate, but also my whole thing is like, everybody should be able to do whatever they want with their body. Like, if Adele wants to lose weight, then she should be able to lose weight. If somebody doesn't want to lose weight, fine. You're not affecting me.
I agree.
So that's my issue. I mean, I know when I was going through my own health journey, I got so much pushback, just even from friends and family, of, oh, you don't eat this anymore, or you can't come out and do this with us. I mean, when you start making changes in your own life, people like to comment on them, and you kind of your changes kind of are almost like a mirror to that person. And they see, oh, I've wanted to do that, but I've never done it. And so let me just chastise Brooke for what she's doing. Or, it's very strange. People just want to comment on what other people are doing. And yeah, I thought that was very sad for Adele. She wanted to lose weight. She lost weight. Good for her. And I get people coming at me, why do you say the term weight loss? Not everybody has to lose weight. And like, I've never said that everybody has to lose weight. I'm saying if you do want to lose weight and you want to do it in a healthy, sustainable way that isn't a one size fits all diet, I am here for you. But I'm not saying everybody has to lose weight. That's not my message at all. But it all gets conflated on social media. We have all these sound clips of 15 seconds and 60 seconds, and you can't say everything in a minute. And so then people just make judgments of your small soundbite of what you're actually trying to say. It's a mess.
No, I mean, I went through some of the same things. That's what you said. When I was on RP, that was my whole point, was to get down to as lean as I could, just to see if I could, I guess, and my gym community supported it because they knew what I was doing, I guess. But my whole family was like, "You need to stop losing weight. You shouldn't do this anymore." And I was like, "I'm doing it. I'm eating. I'm not doing it sickly."
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you're watching me eat right here. I'm just not choosing to eat that big greasy whatever. But yeah, it was almost like, are y'all upset because you're not losing weight and you want to, and you're just jealous, you're envious of it? But I mean, you can do it too. But I'm not sick. I just want to see if I can do it, and I did it. And I actually felt great. I lost. I think only. I mean, I'm not a very big guy at all, like 5'6", 5'7" on a tall day, and but I lost 10 or 15 pounds, and I just wanted to lean out some a little bit, and I felt great getting that extra weight off, just walking around with a lighter than 10, 15. I felt so fast, and yeah, and it was great, and it just blew my mind. It's like, I don't understand what the problem is here. I'm sitting here eating dinner with y'all, and I'm the bad guy because I'm trying to just lean out a little bit. No big deal. I mean,
no, I got that all the time. When I was a teacher, we had lunch on Tuesdays and Thursdays at my school. So it was kind of greasy sandwiches on Tuesdays and greasy pizza on Fridays. So I just started bringing my lunch, but I still wanted the community of the faculty room. So I would go with everybody while they were eating the pizza. And I would just usually bring my lunch. Sometimes I would have the pizza, sometimes I wouldn't, but people would make that comment of like, oh, you don't eat anymore, or you're getting too thin. And I'm like, I'm literally eating right in front of you. You see me eating. It's not that I'm sitting here drinking water. I'm eating food. But if I was eating a salad, they would say that I'm not eating. And so that's another issue in the country of healthy foods are equated with, for some people, not eating, that you're starving yourself. And what are you doing to yourself? And how sad that the norm is that you should be eating the takeout and the fast food and the chips all day long. And then if you switch to eating protein and vegetables and healthier sources of food, that all of a sudden there's something wrong with you. It's crazy.
I mean, Brooke, that was greatly said. And just that, part of it, like according to that book again, is just, we're in a time in our life where we're eating too much food and it's dangerous rather than too little food. And just that, and I just don't get it why people, want to hate on people for try to be successful with themselves and all of that. And it doesn't make sense. And ultimately, I guess if anybody can change if they really want to, it's just a matter of wanting to. And if you don't want to, that's fine. Like it's kind of what you said, that as long as you're not hurting yourself, you're not hurting other people. I don't care what you do. That's your thing. But if you are unhappy with your health and your weight and your metabolism, there's ways to do this and to get better at it. And obviously to search out for people like you. So anyway, I know we're getting kind of short on time, and I just wanted to throw that out there before. So is there anything you want to say? Or I know I want you to plug all your stuff before we hop off here, but like I said, I want to respect your time. But anything else we need?
I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, we did.
Ran the gamut there.
I was trying to I got this time. I want to cover as much as I can. So do you want to plug all your stuff? So if people want to find you and maybe get a chance to work with you and all that good stuff, how do they do that?
So my website is thehealthinvestment.com, and you can learn more about me there. You can apply to work with me. And then I'm most active on Instagram, and that's just at The Health Investment. So those are the best two places to go.
Oh yeah, I'm all about the gram too when I get on my social media. I'm not.
I'll have to follow you.
Okay, cool. I'm not much of a TikTok person, but I don't know why.
So I just got into that. Yeah, I just got into that. I'm actually liking it. I don't know if you ever do Instagram stories.
I do.
But I used to spend a lot of time on Instagram stories. And so to me, TikTok, it's basically like you're just creating videos, but they're segmented, right? They're not just all one story. So it's just kind of a video here, a video there. So I'm experimenting with it and seeing what it's like. I know it's one of the newer kind of like new social media platforms, and there's more growth opportunity on there. So I'm intrigued, but we'll see. There's a lot of kids on there dancing too, and that's not me. So.
That's the only part. When I first found out about it, and we can end this here in a minute, but I was like, I'm not a dancer. I'm not getting on there to dance or whatever. But I did do one on my Instagram though, and I thought it was fun. But
oh, nice.
Yeah, but it was. But now I keep seeing these memes too on Instagram. It's like I've learned so much more on watching TikTok than I actually did in my public school or whatever it was said. I can see
that in either a good way or a bad way. You can definitely learn a lot on there. That's for sure.
So, all right, Brooke. Well, thank you again for sitting down and taking the time and having a little chat with me and all that good stuff. Anything you want to say again before we throw up the deuces on this one? Take it home.
I just think, thanks everyone for listening. Thank you for having me. And I guess if you have one takeaway from this, it's that you can start small and see huge results. So just take it slow, take one small change at a time, and I promise you they'll add up.
Cool. Love it. All right, everyone, be good to yourselves. We're out here.